What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Trust Your Board podcast. My name's Stephen Wright, joined by Mr. William Monroe. Well, how you doing, man?
Steve, I'm doing well. It was a pretty good week for me for fantasy. Had a couple of bye weeks, and then one. Seems like I won in our work league's consolation bracket that we mentioned. We do the number one or the choice of draft pick, usually number one pick for, and we are looking pretty good in our dynasty league right now.
Yeah, we'll be coasting to a victory. We got a lead, and we got 3 players against his defense. So that's a wrap, I believe.
Yeah, it'll be nice to see like officially taking the lead because once the game starts, I think we'll be down by like 2 or 3 points.
Yeah, when the
defense gets the 10.
Yeah.
So then, we'll get like the real, game changing touchdown or whatever, game winning RBI, the true game winning point that we'll see cross the threshold and never look back.
Yeah, that won't be a big issue at all. In our work league, I have gotten so lucky. I feel bad for my opponent because I hate stuff like this, man.
It's brutal.
He was projected 130. He has scored 80, and I am on pace to not break 100.
And still move on.
Yeah, and we've talked about in the past all the injuries on my team, so like it's no surprise. But man, to know you only needed to break 100 to move on in the playoffs, you couldn't do it. That's a killer because I'm sure he's averaging a lot more than that throughout the season. Yeah. I don't think, we don't have like an average points for, but he is up there in scoring, so that just sucks. But he got Debo and Burton that burned him. McLaurin got him, and it's just how it goes sometimes, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, it just is. That's the way it is at times. But alas, we are moving on in a couple different leagues here, and that means there's still some waivers to talk about. Not as much, but there's still going to be some streamable guys and potentially some guys you can pick up and play. Yeah,
definitely some guys worth picking up. It looks like we got Saturday football this week.
Saturday football. Did you realize that?
No, until you put it on the dock, I had no idea.
Yeah, 1 Thursday game, 2 Saturday games.
I mean, I don't know why I'm surprised. It seems like you get at the end of every season, there's always, they start some Saturday games. I feel like it's usually more like 16, 17, but I mean, COVID year.
Yeah, COVID year. And then like, obviously the NCAA is a little different this year with football. But I'll give you a quick peek into week 16 for championship week. This might be the most spread out I've ever seen the games. There's one game. There's no Thursday game. There's a game on Christmas Day, Vikings Saints. There's 3 Saturday games on December 26th. And then there's still a Monday night game. So this is the most spread out I think I've seen the NFL.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. Damn.
So you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different football windows, including the big gap of 1 o'clock and 4 o'clocks on Sunday.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That is a nice little Christmas present to look forward to week 16 when hopefully we all are in our fantasy championship.
Yeah, that'll be a fun weekend. Mm-hmm. You did remind me, since you mentioned college football, we don't touch on it very often, but did you see the play in, I think it was Ball State versus Western Michigan?
Did not.
Okay.
I'm just going to pull this up.
Okay, yeah. We'll do this live on the podcast because you have to look at this last play.
Ball State, and you said Western Michigan?
Yeah.
Yep, the first thing that popped up.
Yeah, so you got to watch that. All viewers, go on YouTube and look it up.
It says it's 3 minutes long.
Oh,
There's a 1 minute long one?
Yeah, 1 minute's probably good enough.
So you pass it to the right, throws it back to the quarterback, pitches it to number 5. Another pitch, it's 3, 4, 5 pitches. Woof. He hits the big dude, passes it back.
They started at the 50-yard line.
7 or 8, yeah.
They're going to get back to like the 20?
30 now, yeah. Yep, back beyond the 30. Back almost to the 20, yeah. Now this guy just cuts upfield, turns around, throws it back again. God, this is already at like 10, 15 pitches.
Right?
Well, he fumbled it all the way back to the 20. And the guy, how did he not get that? Oh, and the team ran on the field, but they're still going. What?
Right?
I love how he can't tell like who is going to tackle him or not.
Right? It's madness. This play.
So they're just going to let him keep playing.
Yeah, basically.
Wow. There's a ton of flags, but yeah, that's crazy.
So to sum it up for the viewers who aren't listening to it, it was last play of the
Wow.
game. Western Michigan's down by 3 points, and they do like the laterals. I mean, Will, what, like 15 laterals probably?
Yeah, at least.
As Will said, we started like the 50-yard line to get back to the 20. There's a fumble. It looks like Ball State's on top of it. They're not. Western Michigan grabs it. Ball State starts running on the field, and Western Michigan's returning it, and they run it back all the way. It was just like this madness, but I believe in the end, it got called.
Just came up with the infograph.
Yeah, it got called for Ball State because they said there was a legal forward pass somewhere.
Yeah, it looked like it was much later in it, but man, that's crazy.
Yeah, fun stuff. But I guess with that, we can go ahead and jump into the waivers. Sound good?
Yeah. Well, like you said, that's a nice tie into college football as we're coming down the end here. You'll have conference championships coming up today or this weekend.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
we will likely have a pretty good idea of what the draft is going to look like for a lot of players coming up soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait.
But yeah, we'll jump in here. No bye weeks, so I just marked down that Saturday games. We have Buffalo and Denver, and then Carolina and Green Bay. So make note, just like you do with your Thursday games, we have, I believe, the Raiders and the Chargers. You're also going to want to make sure you can try to get your Saturday games in the flex if possible, or out of the flex if possible as well.
Yep, absolutely. So let's go ahead and jump into it. We got running backs. We'll tag team the first two together. You have Lynn Bowden and DeAndre Washington for Miami, 1% and 24% owned, respectively, against New England. Are you interested in either of those two?
Not really. I put them on there because I think they played well, and there's a lot of people adding them. But Bowden is interesting because if it's a PPR league, he seemed to, I think he had 8 to 10 targets. Like, he was definitely being utilized in the passing game.
He ran the most routes for the team.
Yeah, so that's interesting, right? If you can, I mean, you'd almost rather it be the other way, right? Be able to plug a running back into your receiver spot. But if you're really desperate, you might be able to get a very utilized wide receiver into your running back spot. So I think I might lean toward, because if either of the other two come back, I think Washington is kind of, done. But Bowden seems like he might be able to be utilized even with Gaskin or Salvin Ahmad back in the lineup.
Yeah, I'm with you. He's the one that interests me because of that point exactly. He's more of a product of the wide receivers being hurt and Gesicki being hurt. That benefits him a lot. It's likely going to be in that James White kind of a role, or you're pass catching your way into relevance. With that in mind, I don't expect the world from him. I know some people are going to look at it and be like, oh, well, the Rams and Cam Akers just gashed New England on the ground. Now, what can Miami do? And it's like, well, no.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between Lynn Bowden and Washington and Cam Akers, unfortunately. And there's a big difference between the Rams offense and the Dolphins offense. So I don't have that kind of expectation for him. But, I mean, like we said, James White kind of role. He catches 6 passes for, 40 yards and maybe he gets the end zone, and suddenly you got a good week.
Yeah. So moving on to another guy who actually had a decent week and was surprisingly one of the more effective guys in the backfield is Jeff Wilson, San Francisco, 19% owned. He's got Dallas this week. What do you think there, Steve? How are you feeling about your running back core for your favorite team?
Oh boy, I don't know. It seems like Mostert's okay. So, you're not getting any kind of bump there. The McKinnon thing is still a mystery. I mean, this is like 2 weeks in a row where he's done literally nothing. And I don't know, at this point, it's not like you're resting him for a playoff run or anything. So I don't know if he's done something or he's hurt, because, he always seemed fine when he was out there. Like, he wasn't, there was games where he played really well, but, he wasn't setting the world on fire, but he wasn't terrible either. So I don't know. San Francisco, it's hard I feel like you'd put Wilson in and suddenly McKinnon's going to rear his head and be around. But with that in mind, they got Dallas. It's, running back's a position that everyone needs. So of the guys we are talking about today, he's the one I'm taking my shot on. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean him or maybe the next guy. Bowden, is kind of an upside shot, but I'd rather get Wilson or the next guy we'll talk about here, Jamal Williams. And Wilson probably has the best chance to lead the backfield. Also has a chance to dud like most of these other guys, just because Kyle Shanahan doesn't care about your fantasy team and will likely have Jerick McKinnon back in the fold after he is relegated to pretty much special teams duties this week. He'll be the lead back. Watch. That's just what will happen. But yeah, I think it's probably Jeff Wilson and Jamal Williams. And Jamal Williams is owned in 62% of leagues, so you probably aren't going to be able to get him, but he's an interesting one as well. Yeah, I think those are probably the two that I'd be looking at. And I don't know that you can really get either right now, but I mean, I'm still surprised to see Jeff Wilson at 19%. I know he was added in a lot of places, but that is what Yahoo has him at.
Yeah, at the end of the day, they're both pretty similar guys to me. Jamal Williams' floor is like 3 or 4 points, 20, 30, 40 yards. I mean, that's pretty much his floor. He has those games, though, that we've been seeing for years. I mean, it's not like a coaching thing, because it's happened with both coaching staffs where suddenly it's the Jamal Williams show and Aaron Jones is playing second fiddle out of nowhere. So like he just gets hot, and when he's hot, he plays. And if that's the upside that you need, then he's a great play. But they're both kind of guys that, if you get a touchdown, you're really happy. And if you're not, then, you're sitting in that 5-point kind of a range. So they're pretty similar to me. Obviously, Packers offense a little bit better than the 49ers offense. I think I'd rather face the Dallas defense than the Carolina defense, but they're both, meh. So, yeah, I'm fine with both of them. I'd still lean Jeff Wilson probably, but I have no issue if Jamal's your guy.
Yeah, it's close either way. And the last one I'll note here is Ito Smith for the Falcons. They seem to be pretty much in a running back committee. I mean, they're not utilizing Gurley a ton, which is interesting. I mean, he's only on the one-year deal right now. And, I mean, they don't really have much to lose. So I guess it's more kind of see what you got with everyone else. But Gurley only had 6 carries, 3 targets. I'm not sure what Hill had, because I didn't see too much about him. But Ito Smith had, some carries, at least 11 carries and 1 target. I think he only total 45 yards. But he seemed to be the guy, at least this week, that got the most usage. See if I can pull up information on Brian Hill.
Yeah,
too.
I got Brian Hill. He didn't do anything. He had 1 attempt for 3 yards.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Tampa's D is pretty good, especially against the run. But if you're in desperate need of a guy that could be the lead guy, Ito Smith. But, I mean, he's probably not the touchdown guy. But he's only 4% owned, so he could be something that you look to.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it seems like Gurley's knees bothering him, and
yeah,
that's not going to go away, this late in the season. I don't think, with only a couple weeks left. Like, it is what it is. They're probably in a timeshare. And like you said, Brian Hill's not going to be the goal line guy. Like, they're still going to rely on Gurley for that, I'd imagine. So his upside's kind of capped. So he's a desperation guy. If you need somebody, like you said, he's in a committee, and you can do worse than a committee. So, that's something. But
sure.
He's, if you're banking on Brian Hill or Ito Smith, I guess you're doomed, probably.
Yeah, at this point, you're probably in worse shape than you're imagining. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. As we talked about, there's really not a ton. There wasn't any major running back injuries this week, so not a ton of guys available on the waivers.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll move to the wide receiver position. Nelson Aguilar had another big game, 100 yards and a touchdown, 9 targets. We've been seeing games like this from him throughout the year. He's just very boom bust. Are you interested in Aguilar?
I think, and it's interesting, I definitely will think he should be rostered. Surprised to see him only owned 36% of leagues. Goes up against Chargers here on Thursday night. So it's a short week, but still, I think it's a decent matchup. There's a couple of guys on here that I was surprised that were under 50%. Aguilar being one of them, and that, he seems to be the go-to guy here for Vegas. 11 targets this week. He only came down with 4 catches for 38 yards. So obviously a dud week, but 11 targets, 6 targets, 9 targets. He's a guy that's being heavily used in the offense. So even though it's a tough matchup, you got the Chargers this week, Miami next week. I think he has to be on your roster, and he's a guy that is definitely flex worthy and maybe even starter worthy if you're desperate.
Yeah, he's a scary guy to start on a Thursday. He's somebody you'd rather have like on a Monday where you say, "Hey, I need this upside. I'm plugging him in." Thursday, you're either blowing up your week and you're going to have a fantastic week, and if he goes off, or you're going to be in the hole quite a bit if he has one of his like 2-point games. So it's worrisome on Thursday, but the matchup's there, the usage is there. It makes sense.
Yeah, so if he's there on the waivers, and as well as a Kiki Kuti, next guy here, 45% owned in Indianapolis, so tough matchup, but a guy who was heavily utilized 2 weeks ago. He had 9 targets. He only had 3 targets this week in Chicago, but 24 yards, scored, lost a fumble, so not a great week. But I imagine he is going to be heavily targeted. I'm actually curious to see who got all the targets this week with everybody that was injured there. But what do you think about Kiki Kuti, Nelson Aguilar?
Yeah, so I'll actually lump somebody in here. But yeah, I mean, Kuti's game was saved because of the touchdown, or his week was saved because of the touchdown. He wasn't that bad. I would imagine he continues to do pretty good. Indy's defense is pretty good, but Aguilar did just burn him. Between the two of them, I'd probably go Aguilar for the matchup against the Chargers. That's pretty awesome. But I will throw out, Chad Hansen is a guy that got some of those targets in the Texans. So he got 7 targets last week for 101 yards, and then 7 targets for this week for 57 yards. 2 pretty good fantasy weeks. That's a nice target volume. This week he went 7 for 7, so he caught them all. I know, we would rather see Coulter catching those, but
yes,
what can you do? But he's the other guy I think you bring up. That there's 2 solid weeks. If you need a flex, you could do worse than 9 points or so.
Yeah, he could do worse, and he's a safe option. But I don't know that I'd have the gall to be able to put him in here in semifinal weekend for most people, week 15. Yeah, it probably would just kind of dance with who got me there. But yeah, he's not a bad, safe option.
Yep, and then we move on to 2 Broncos here. Tim Patrick, I can't believe he's only 28% owned. He's had so many good weeks this week, but
yeah, he's just consistently getting a touchdown and a good amount of targets.
Yeah, so we got Tim Patrick there, and then we have Hamler, who went off for a big week, only 3% owned. Both of them against Buffalo. Which of those would you take a shot on?
Yeah, I think it would come down to what you need. I think Hamler, you're going to get maybe the big play out of. And I think you're going to get usage from Patrick, but he's had his games where it's 30 and a touchdown, so the touchdown saved him. So I'd probably view Patrick a little safer, right? If I needed 5 to 7, I'm hoping more with Patrick, whereas if I needed 10 plus, I'm probably hoping that I can get a couple big plays out of KJ.
Yeah, I think KJ is probably your big upside play, like we saw this week. He's got that, and we knew it coming out. He's got that D-Max kind of style to him, where he can blow up at any given moment. And this week was one of the weeks.
3 targets, 2 catches, 86 yards, 2 touchdowns. So that's what you're looking for on that upside shot.
Yep, where Patrick does it a little bit differently. He'll get you, 80 yards and a touchdown, but off of like 6 catches or 7 catches or something like that. So,
yeah,
similar upside. But I will say Hamler's upside's a little bit bigger, because if somebody's going to hit like 2 70-yard touchdowns, it's probably going to be Hamler. So, yeah, I'll take him if you need upside. He just hasn't done a lot this year, so his floor is nothing. Non-existent.
Yeah, it does skew scoring format too, because if you're looking in a standard league, the lack of touches doesn't hurt KJ as much. But if you're looking at PPR, you imagine that there's a much higher chance that you're going to get 4, 5, 6 catches out of Patrick than you're going to get out of KJ.
Yep, absolutely. Moving on, Sterling Shepard, 48% owned, so he's out there about half a league. He's got Cleveland this week. What do you think about him?
Yeah, I'm still surprised. I mean, I get that the offense hasn't been great, but that he's under 50% owned too. He hasn't done great. He had a catch for 22 yards and a 2-point conversion 2 weeks ago. 6 targets once again, though. And then 5 targets this week for 3 catches, 35 yards. So some dud weeks, but, you can kind of bank on the game where he catches 6-7 yard targets and 6 or 7 of his targets and get, in the 50-60 range. He's, a guy that I'd rather play than probably most of these guys if you're looking for safety. I think he's just uber targeted. Aguilar is probably my go-to upside guy, but I think Shepard would be right there with Kuti based on guys we've talked about so far.
Yeah, he is the floor play. If you come down and you need floor and all these guys are taken except for Shepard or Hamler might be like the new hotness. He's the rookie. Yep. He's got Drew Lock, who's a little bit more exciting. And, he's the guy everyone wants to love because he's the new shiny toy. But he can get you 0, and Shepard's not going to get you 0 barring an injury. So, yeah, he's absolutely your foreplay.
Yeah, so next up, Manuel Sanders, 40% owned. Not playing New Orleans. I believe that is actually Atlanta he's got.
It's Kansas City.
Kansas City, there you go.
Yeah, so he had a good week this week, but I cannot say I'm interested. Just looking, I got his stats pulled up. I'll go over his last 6 weeks here, Will. Targets first, 5-1, 5-1, 6-5, and his yards were 38-5, 66-4, 39-48. He had 2 touchdowns in there, and those 2 touchdown weeks were solid fantasy weeks. You got into double digits. But those
you don't get the touchdown.
You're burned. And the floor's not even there. If you don't get the touchdown, realistically, you're probably getting 6 points, 7 points, 8 points, something like that. But like I said, 1 for 1 for 5 yards, 1 for 1 for 4 yards. I would say those are abnormal, but that's his absolute floor is nothing. So I am not interested. Maybe you're hoping for a shootout with Kansas City. Maybe.
Yeah, I think it's the shootout with Kansas City, and I think the huge caveat is you're adding him, and you're only playing him if Breeze is back and playing. I mean, he's not the Breeze of old, but he's definitely going to pass the ball more than we're seeing out of Taysom Hill and likely more accurately. So maybe you're hoping for a shootout with Breeze in the game. Then, maybe because Breeze hasn't played through any of those games we just walked through as well. I believe he's been out since week 4 or 5. And those first 5 weeks of the season, Emmanuel Sanders, has played much better. 4 of the first 5 games, he was 9 points or more. But
Taysom hasn't been in that long. Breeze has only been out. Nah, it hasn't been that long. Let me double check.
I thought it was at least a month though.
Breeze went out week 10. Okay. So it has been a month. You're right there. It's been 4 games exactly. So you're right on that front, but not quite that long.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So that means, that because Sanders missed 2 games too. So weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 9, he is double digits in 4 of 6, 9 or more in 5 of 6. So a little bit more floor, but you're also picking them up, and it's not on him, it's on the quarterback. So I'd say if you get the inkling that Sanders is going to play, or that Breeze is going to play, maybe a little bit higher floor, a little bit higher ceiling, but there's probably better options out there.
Yep, most likely. And finally, Mr. Davis, Gabriel Davis and Buffalo, only 7% owned against Denver. One of my desperation plays this week that came through for that touchdown.
Near and dear to your heart so far this year.
Very much so. And, he didn't do a lot. He had 3 catches for 19 yards and a touchdown, but he had 8 targets. Just pretty nice to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's 100% taken over the John Brown role, right? There's probably a couple short targets that went to Beasley, but he has really looked like the number 2 since John Brown has not been playing well.
Yeah.
Or I guess not been playing at all, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's got Denver, so that's pretty solid. He will be in my roster again, most likely.
Yeah, I don't think you can afford not to play him at this point.
No, and he's definitely up there. I would rather have him over Sanders. I'd rather have him over Shepard. I'll take him over Hamler. Kuti. Tim Patrick's close because Tim Patrick's are pretty good, and Aguilar has been pretty good as well. But he's close to the top of the list for me, and part of that's because he's on the best offense out of anyone here.
Yeah, I think it's probably him and Aguilar are the two guys that I'd be looking at the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he definitely doesn't have the target volume, but he's probably the most explosive out of them all, too.
Yep, absolutely. So we'll go ahead and move on to the tight end position here, Will. Tyler Higbee, who hasn't been doing a lot, but he's only 48% owned, and he has the Jets, and the Jets solve a lot of problems. You interested in Higbee this week?
Yeah. Yes, he's probably more of an upside guy. There's a couple guys here that we'll talk about that I think I'd probably rather play, but yeah, I mean, he's not bad. It's just things with that offense because you just don't know what it's going to be. You know, they're going to be relatively good, but he's likely going to be third fiddle to Woods and Cup, and then from there could be a running back that gets involved too. It's just pretty inconsistent. I don't know really how to feel about Higbee. What do you think?
I mean, it's pretty much what you said. He's your upside play. If you're someone who's been streaming the tight end position, you know, I could take a shot on, you know, somebody we're talking about later, Cole Kmet against Minnesota, who's got a good matchup but hasn't been doing a lot. Or I could take Higbee, who we have a history for. Like, we know the upside's there. He's got a great matchup. You know, I would rather have that in Higbee than him or Ingram or Jimmy Graham. You know, somebody that, you know, I'll get you 30 yards, and if I get a touchdown, great. And if I don't, whatever. Where Higbee can pop off 100 yards and a touchdown. So if you're an upside player at tight end, which I am, I'll take my shot on Higbee. You know, just understand he's the Higbee we've been seeing this year, not the one we saw last year. So the floor is pretty average. And it could be an Everett week.
Yeah. I think I would probably lean the next guy we'll talk about here, who has been probably maybe our most talked about player on the waiver episodes, and that's Logan Thomas.
Yeah.
57% owned. He's got Seattle. And he's got Carolina in week 16. He's been getting it done recently. I mean, he had that kind of passing yard, rushing yard, weird game a couple weeks ago, but 4 targets there, getting 11 points, 9 targets against Pittsburgh, and then another 7 targets this week. He's been getting it done the last few weeks and been fairly consistent all year.
He has been. Again, he is a PPR guy. So if you're in a standard league, I'm not sure you want Logan Thomas unless you're hunting for that touchdown. Again, it's got Seattle and Carolina, so you know, not too bad there, but definitely a PPR play, definitely a great floor play. It's nice to see his ownership percentage going up, 57% compared to, you know, like you said, we've been covering him all year down in like the 30s and the 40s. So he's definitely jumped up. I know that's in large part to last week. He had that big game against Pittsburgh. So it's good to see. Maybe he'll get himself out of our waiver priority range for our last episode. Maybe he'll be too high to talk about.
Hopefully, we will see. But next up, another guy that we have in our Dynasty League and we're riding while Mark Andrews was down is Tim Burton. Trey Burton.
Tim Burton. Okay.
Tim Burton. You can't imagine that, right?
Wow. Yeah. 36% owned against Houston. He falls into the category I was talking about earlier of Jimmy Graham and Eric Ebron and, you know, players like that, where he gets a touchdown, you're pretty happy. But as my opponent found out this week, he'll goose you too. And that is not good. So I would take Higbee and Thomas over Burton in a heartbeat. What about you?
Yeah, I think you have to go with those two. I mean, Burton probably has more competition than Higbee, which is tough. But yeah, I'd probably go Thomas, Higbee, Burton. If I'm picking through there, I mean, if you're standard, maybe Thomas drops down a bit, but
yep, that's fair. Then finally, I talked about him earlier. Cole Kmet is our last option here. Only 6% owned, but does have Minnesota, so that's a solid option. 2 decent weeks in a row. He had a real good week against Detroit. He had a pretty average week this week, and a half-point PPR. He put up 6 points, so I mean that kind of falls in the category of a lot of tight ends. What do you think of Kmet?
Yeah, I mean, I've really liked him for Dynasty, the way he's been playing. I wasn't sure about the fit there, but I liked him coming out. And yeah, I mean, if you're in Dynasty, I think you can be happy about him. I don't know that you can pull the trigger on him unless you are in a standard league, you're looking for a touchdown, and you know, all of the other guys like Higbee, Burton are all gone. Yeah, it's a risk with the way that those offenses are playing.
Yep, he's just a dart throw.
Yeah. So that'll wrap us up for tight ends. We'll take a look here at some streaming quarterbacks and defenses before we get out of here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll burn through the quarterbacks here. Will go ahead and pick out like 2 that you like or something like that. We have Rivers against Houston, Jalen Hurts against Arizona, Carr at the Chargers, Locke against Buffalo, Dalton against San Francisco, and Teddy Bridgewater at Green Bay. Who tickles your fancy there?
I'd be hard pressed not to say why I don't want to play Hurts against that Arizona defense. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Derek Carr probably. I think out of all those guys, Rivers and Carr are the only ones I could make an argument over Hurts. But that rushing baseline, even if he can get somewhere in the 60, 70 range and having the chance at a touchdown, it's just, that's like throwing for another 200 yards. It's crazy.
It is. Yeah. That's definitely going to be great. Now Arizona's going to have some film they can watch of him where the Saints weren't really afforded that. So, maybe that helps them out a little bit. Mm-hmm. So he's interesting, but I'm with you. I'm probably going with Carr and Rivers. And I told you before, I've been streaming in our work league, and Carr is probably going to be my guy this week. Hopefully he doesn't get grabbed up, but the matchup against the Chargers, I got Josh Jacobs as well. And if I could secure all the touchdowns in that matchup, I'll be happy with that. The other ones are fine. Locke against Buffalo, whatever. Bridgewater is I'm not super interested in that. Dalton will be okay against San Francisco, I guess, but Carr is really the one that I'm interested in, and then it goes down to Hurts and Rivers.
Yeah, I think that's probably where you're looking at. But once again, you have I know you're not a huge fan of Thursday guys. Derek Carr, Chargers is a Thursday game.
Yeah, that's not ideal.
No, but yeah, I think it's probably Carr, Hurts, Rivers for me. But man, it's tough. I have him in a super flex league. And I have Jackson and Stafford, so I am seriously debating playing Hurts as my QB2 there.
Yeah, that's not a bad option. Now, to be fair, in our work league, Rivers and Hurts are both owned by the same guy, good friend Calvin. So I don't have the option. So I'm just going with Carr.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to work with what you got.
Yeah, exactly. And finally here, we'll do the same thing with our defensive streamers here. We have the Titans against Detroit, the Vikings against Chicago, the Bills, Denver, Dolphins versus New England, the Browns against the Giants, and the Bucks at Atlanta. All of them sitting around 50% or more, except for the Titans down to 37%. Who do you like out of that group there?
Yeah, the Dolphins are an interesting one. The way the Patriots have been playing, obviously the Rams are very good, and that's why they dominated them on Thursday. But Dolphins, 62% owned, so highest ownership out of all these guys. But they're interesting. If Julio doesn't play, the Bucks against Atlanta, because I forget who said it, but someone said that Matt Ryan just reminds them of a person who lost their glasses when Julio's not on the field. He just looks so out of sorts. So funny. So the Bucks, if Julio's not playing, is interesting. Dolphins against New England. I don't know that I'm thrilled about the Vikings or Titans, even though they have decent matchups. The Bills are playing a lot better, though, so that's a team against Denver that I think is probably another good bet. But once again, those three are all over 50% owned, so you may not be able to get them.
Interesting. The one that you did not touch was actually the one I think I'm going with, and that's the Browns against the Giants. I could just see that being a lower scoring game, which isn't bad for defenses, but I do like the Dolphins as well. I'm with you with the Bucks. I would be interested in the Bucks even if Julio does play. They got a pretty solid defense, and if Julio plays, I'm sure he'll be banged up to some degree. But, that bottom three, Dolphins, Browns, Bucks, all interesting to me. Browns at 50, Bucks at 53, Dolphins at 62. So one of them will likely be available for you. Mm-hmm. So, take your pick there.
Yeah, so that about wraps us up here for the waivers episode. Good luck, everyone, and get your waiver claims in And hopefully we will be seeing you guys here in the semifinal week with our Start Sit episode coming out in a couple days.
Yeah, absolutely. Until then, folks, trust your board.